I heard she was dangerous, like completely unpredictable or whatever. He's just being difficult. He's just a normal teenager and he needs to quit acting out. Anxiety's a complete cop-out. Okay, the weather's super bad. Go get some pills, you psycho. Why don't you identify as a butch lesbian? It's completely the same thing. Holy, that hairstyle is really, really gay. Do the voices tell you to do that? What are they gonna tell you to do next? Murder a family? Get off your ass. Depression's an excuse. So you've got some issues, and I think you've come to the right place if you want to learn how to help somebody else or you want to learn how to help yourself. Excuse me, I've got some issues.
Picture yourself with a great cup of coffee, or even like some tea, watching the birds out this window, just enjoying the morning that you're having. You know, nothing could really get better than where you're at right now. You've got these two cats just purring away in a window, and the cold wind from the fall air just blowing in. Oh wait, I forgot to pay my cell phone bill. And now you feel like this. Anxiety sucks. Here are some quotes about anxiety. Living with anxiety is kind of like having a voice following you around. It knows all of your insecurities and eventually it becomes the loudest voice in the room, the only one. I constantly need to remind myself that the fear of things going wrong won't make them go right. Here's some quotes from friends of mine about their experiences with anxiety. My own anxiety comes from people, cities, and time compression. I almost get a sensory overload with smells, sounds, and things that I'm around. Like, when there are too much of something, I can get panic attacks. When there's sirens, screaming, kids, laughing, tires screeching or honking, that can make me bolt, and I literally need a timeout in the middle of the woods away from everything. Anxiety is a huge factor for me, and I know my triggers, and knowing that makes me able to keep my mental state pretty level. Some people think panic attacks are all the same. I myself suffer from anxiety, but I have a different type of panic attack. I get painful chest aches, jaw aches, I lose a sense of where I am and what I'm doing, and I just lose motivation from that. I thought I was suffering from a heart attack, but it turns out it was a panic attack. I don't know, I just see and hear from people that say, I don't have anxiety because those aren't panic attacks. I do. Not all panic attacks are fainting and trouble breathing. It's different for everybody. Hey guys, today's video is going to be about anxiety if you guys haven't figured that much out yet. So let me give you a visual breakdown of what anxiety is. Let's say you're going up a set of stairs and you miss one. So you get that really horrible feeling in the pit of your stomach, sort of like a lurch, sort of like a pain, and an immediate panic response like, what do I do? What do I do next? I'm going to fall, I'm going to hit my face. Now, normally that feeling's alleviated when you hit that next stair. When you have anxiety, even after that stressor has been removed, falling down the stairs, you still have that feeling. And it can last for days, it can last for minutes, it can last for hours, it can last for months. It all depends on what the stressor is and how important it is to you. So I'm going to give you guys some symptoms of anxiety. Here are the signs and symptoms of anxiety. Not all symptoms that I'm about to list are the common symptoms. Anxiety can be irrational and different for everyone, therefore it can show up in a lot of ways that you may not expect. Here, however, are the most common. Your temperature fluctuations within yourself. You're either going to feel overly hot or maybe overly cold. Your heart might start to race. Your chest might start to tighten. Every little thing is going to become a source of worry for you. I'm going to give you some examples. So anxiety can manifest itself in a lot of different ways, and one of those ways is something called snowballing thoughts. Now, I'm sure a lot of you will be able to relate when I tell you exactly what a snowballing thought is. Let's say you have one bad thought. I can't fit into the jeans that I fit into a month ago. Crap, I must be gaining weight. But then, all of a sudden it turns into something much darker. You're sitting there and you're like, oh, you know what? My partner, boyfriend, whatever, isn't going to like me in what I'm wearing right now. They're gonna think I'm gross. I must be gross. I look gross. Look at this fat hanging everywhere. It's horrible. And then it just spirals into extremely low self-esteem and depression and not being able to get out of bed, and just everything becomes an irritant. Now that's snowballing. It's taking one minor situation and just exploding it into something else. So phobias are really stigmatized, but I doubt that most people know the difference between a phobia and a fear. A fear is something that you don't really enjoy, and I mean, if you're faced with it, you'll probably screech and run away. But a phobia is something that you are confronted with that you literally rearrange your entire life around to be able to never deal with it. So here's the difference between a fear and a phobia. Let's say you're afraid of needles. Well, you're probably going to put up a pretty decent fight about going to do it, but eventually you're going to do it. You're going to have the maturity to go and get it done, even though you don't like it. You might bring somebody with you, if that makes it a little bit easier, but it's not a life or death situation. Now, phobia, I'll up the ante a little bit. Let's say you're a nursing student and you need to have the immunization to be able to do your program for your future, and you're afraid of needles, except you're phobic. That would basically entail rearranging your entire life to be able to avoid ever getting that needle. So you would avoid the topic in conversation with your professors. You would try to be like, oh, I'll get you that record. I'll get it as soon as possible. And then you just don't. And you basically hope the entire situation goes away, even though it has a huge, huge impact on what you want to do with your life. So that is the difference between a fear and a phobia. Here are the symptoms of panic disorder: sweating, nausea, dizziness, fainting, increased heart rate, depersonalization, detachment from your surroundings, derealization, not feeling present or reality, fear that you are going crazy, fearing your life, or fear that you're dying. Most importantly, are these feelings something that reoccur for you? You may be dealing with panic disorder. This is a disorder that we hear a lot about in this day and age, and that's post-traumatic stress disorder. This is a direct response to some kind of trauma that someone has experienced. Trauma like death, injury, torture, abuse. These things can either be visually experienced or physical experience, it doesn't matter. It can show itself in unpleasant memories that you can't control and or dreams. Criteria says it must be present for at least a month. People with post-traumatic stress disorder will avoid triggering situations for fear of the feelings that they have experienced to come back for them. Sometimes they are unable to remember all of a certain event or discussion. Short-term memory and long-term memory are affected. The things that initially may have caused the PTSD may be something that they're only able to remember through their dreams or through those random memories, which can be greatly upsetting. It's repressed memories. They may not enjoy the things that they used to. They may have an extreme difficulty with feeling positive emotion, and they may not like to think about the future as much as they did at one point before they were ill. This includes their goals and careers. They can have great trouble falling or staying asleep. They can be very angry or irritated, unable to concentrate, and they may also always be on the defensive and startled. So, obsessive-compulsive disorder. Now, this is something that affects a lot of people very deeply, just like everything on this video. And it's really stigmatized, just like a lot of other things on this video. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a breakdown of what somebody with OCD might experience. The first thing I'm going to list is compulsive thoughts. Let's say you have a thought about, oh, my house is going to burn down. You're like, oh, that was pretty weird, and then you move on. Except when you have OCD, it's not like that. It's a deep, obsessive thought that you can't get rid of. You're like, I need to get home because my house is going to burn down. My house is going to burn down if I don't get home. I need to get home now. Do you have any foundation as to why your house is going to burn down? Probably not. But you can't shake that feeling anyways. It's like a dead weight on your head. Like, you know it's going to happen. So that makes it very difficult to deal with. Now, another thing that people with OCD deal with is obsessive tasks and repetitive tasks. So they'll do something the exact same way every time, and that brings them comfort. So washing their hands, washing their clothes, that's something you hear about a lot. Some things you don't hear about so much are stacking, counting, rearranging. So if you were to interrupt somebody with OCD while they're doing it, or even just move it slightly out of place, they know. The reason why they're doing those things a certain way is because it brings them comfort. It's a way that they deal with their anxiety. When you have OCD, it's usually because you're unable to control other things in your life. It's how you cope with your anxiety. Now, it is a coping skill, but there's a line between when it becomes unhealthy. When you're unable to live out your life, if those tasks aren't done, sort of like the phobia, that is when you cross the line between OCD and regular behavior. I know a few people with OCD that need to count a certain amount of colored shoes per day. I also know people that need to make sure all the water bottles are out of their house or that their books are listed in a proper order. I know a lot of people, myself included, that need to rearrange things. Now, my behavior is pretty normal, but I grew up in a family with someone that I deeply believe has OCD, and it affected me in that way, so I like to have everything in a certain way. I know where all of my stuff is. Nobody else knows where all of my stuff is, but if it's not there, I panic really bad. So that's when it becomes a little bit different. Another thing with OCD is compulsive behavior. So I'll give you a difference between what's normal and what may not be normal. Everybody checks to make sure their door's locked before they go to work. Everybody checks to make sure they have everything in their bag. The difference is if you're repeatedly checking it at about every 5 minutes, or if you know you've checked something about 7 or 8 times and you run back to check it anyways and you risk missing your ride to work, etc. When you know you've already checked these things, like, oh, did I leave the Scentsy on? It's 12 o'clock in the afternoon and I've been thinking about this since 8 o'clock this morning. My house is going to burn down. That is an obsessive thought, and that is something that a lot of people with OCD deal with on the regular. Can you imagine having those thoughts stuck in your head all the time? It must be extremely difficult. So how do I deal with this crap? Well, there's a lot of different ways. One of the first ones I'm going to give you is one that you can do on your couch, like my couch behind me, which is really dirty right now and really distracting. So what you're going to do is you're going to lay down on the couch and you're going to focus on your feet. You're going to clench your feet and then you're going to release and you're going to feel that stress slowly slide out. Now you're going to do that from the tip of your toes to the top of your head. Some people like to do it on one side first and then the second side second, or both at the same time. It's really up to you. Another thing that can help is a scent memory. A lot of people think that like pine trees remind them of Christmas. Find a scent that really speaks to you and go from there. If you need to up the ante a little bit, invite a friend over for a board game because it's tactile and it also focuses on your mind. The more senses you have distracted, the better it is, which is why taking a shower can be a really good thing to do. If you're in a crowded place, I'd recommend getting a stress ball or a bouncy ball and then just, clenching it or bouncing it. A lot of people find that rhythms really help too. I have a set of bongos that I smack around when I'm not feeling too well. There's a lot of different things that you can do. Now, if you're in a really crowded place and you can't get away, there's deep breathing, which I can't stress enough. It is actually wonderful. You'll count to 5 on the in and count to 5 on the out and go from there. And you're going to keep doing it until you actually feel relaxed. So that's about all that I have for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I am going to be doing a segment of videos on each of the disorders listed here. This is just a general information to get me started. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any comments, please send them over to the email that I'm going to list at the end here. Have a great day, guys, and take care.